What is going on, everybody? We are back with another episode of the What's Your Hustle podcast. I'm here with Kevin McKannan from Glenloch Legal. I've had a lot of firsts on this podcast. You are the first lawyer.
Maybe the last one.
Yeah. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. But kind of introduce yourself a little bit. And
Sure. So, like you said, my name's Kevin McKannan. I am the founding partner of Glenloch Legal. We have offices currently right now in Winchester, Martinsburg, and just recently, and this is not a secret anymore, it's in Leesburg also. So we just opened up a satellite office branch in Leesburg as well. So primarily, I mean, we're very niche down as far as practice goes. So on my end, I deal with probably about 60, 65, 70%. I serve as outside counsel for small business, anywhere from the startup all the way through the person looking to sell their business. And the other part of the work that I do is estate planning. And then my partner, he does real estate, and he also does some business laws. And he also does some litigation as well.
Interesting. Okay. And with, so you're you guys are spreading out a little bit. So you're in Leesburg, Winchester, and then also you said Martinsburg.
Correct.
You're kind of covering all your bases. Well, most of the bases.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to go too much farther out in Northern Virginia, just for the mere fact you get eaten up in the competition that's out there. And not only that, but the size of a town like, city, like Winchester, it's actually serves very well for the populations that we serve. We deal with a lot of trades. So this area is absolutely ideal for trades and us helping out trades. Likewise, we'll probably go to more of like the Harrisonburg market here at some point in the future.
Sure.
So,
yeah, and it sounds like it's a little bit strategic as far as location as well.
Yes, very.
And you guys started in Winchester.
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah. So what are the typical businesses that you work with?
Oh my gosh, so it's we have a broad spectrum, but like I said, a lot of trades, construction, HVAC, plumbers, electricians. IT companies, the smaller based IT companies. Okay. So really, I mean, anywhere in between there too. And a lot of mechanics. So again, very based in trades as far as what we do.
Interesting. Yeah. And there's a group of businesses, or a small group of small businesses is a group that, they need, I guess, litigation as well. And they need help with, contract writing. I mean, I've reached out to you for plenty of stuff. So it's definitely one of those where there's a need for it. So how did you get into that? Is that something where you went to law school for small businesses?
No. So I was one of those non-traditional students. So I actually had about 10 years of business experience.
Sorry.
It's okay. Before I got into law. So I gradually transitioned into law. I got my law degree. I was 35, 36 at the time when I got my law degree. So I was, I'm going to say old, but I was older than most of the people that have just come out of undergraduate degree studies and into law school after that.
And law was something that you always wanted to get into?
Not at all. So it's actually something that kind of came about after a while. So I was in the mortgage industry, the real estate industry for a while. Well, my undergraduate degree is in health sciences. So I actually helped form a wellness center here locally, not Winchester's, but Martinsburg. I was actually one of the people that helped start the one up in Martinsburg. And then I started taking MBA courses. So I was going to get my MBA. I went about halfway through, and it was an accounting course of all courses where I don't know, I can't remember when it was in the semester, but it was one of those things where the professor was like, well, you can pretty much make numbers do whatever you want them to do. And I'm like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up leaving after that semester, and then eventually found my way into law. So I started getting into the real estate aspects of things. I started working for another local law practice. And it felt pretty familiar. Now I know I'm very niche down now, but back then, I mean, when you first get going, you're kind of a general practitioner. You're trying to find out what you like, what you don't like, and it's something that's always kind of gravitated me towards businesses.
Yeah, that's very interesting because we, as a videographer, as a photographer in media, it's kind of the same path where it's like you get started and you're like, oh, I really like weddings, or I don't really know what I want to get into. I want to just kind of try everything. Typically there's that one thing that gets you to pick up the camera, but then you realize that there's so much, like you have real estate, you have commercial, you have branding, you have product shoot, like it just goes on forever. Right. And now you have social media marketing, you have this different avenue that just kind of blossomed in the recent years, and you kind of don't know. And that's kind of where like myself was, we were, when I started was, we don't know what we want to do. We started in weddings because I was like, oh, it's weekends are free. I can do that and still have a full-time job, this or that. And now it's just like, I mean, we haven't officially announced it, but we have a wedding brand that we've talked about it. It's fun. It's nice to be able to like kind of go down that avenue of, okay, it's where we started. Now we're kind of getting back into it. But I mean, we didn't know what we wanted to really do until years after we got into the industry. And it sounds like it's very similar with.
Yeah, it's a lot of businesses are like that. So it's funny. I even have this conversation with my kids because my kids are older. My son has his own business as well. So it's one of those things where when you first go in, and I have this conversation with entrepreneurs all the time, when you first go in, what you may not realize, let me take a step back. When you first go in, you have a purpose. You're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But I think one of the biggest things about being an entrepreneur is being flexible, being able to go out there and be like, there's a need. This is kind of falling right in line with what I want to do. And you realize that there's not a lot out there that actually is going to fulfill that need. So you start catering your business towards doing something like that. So yeah, a lot of times, I mean, having that flexibility, being able to go out there and being like, okay, yeah, I didn't see this need when I originally entered the market, but now I see it, and I think I can really fulfill this need in this market. Yeah, yeah, it happens all the time.
It's crazy because you don't want to fight it because you feel like you're not doing your due diligence as a business owner. But I mean, you would have told me when we first started, like, hey, you're gonna have a studio, you're gonna be doing short form social media marketing. I'm like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, but now here we are, and it's something that I also enjoy, right? It's it's different. There's a uniqueness to it. We still do the traditional branding and marketing. That's one of the main things that we focus on, but there's this new avenue, even podcasting, right? So like, it's a term that everybody throws around and understands, but if you look at it from like a local level, like Winchester, I mean, I'll toot my own horn or toot our own horn. There's not another one of these types of businesses in this area.
Yeah.
And, we were like, okay, how do we make it better? Right. And we originally started in this small little single set type. And then I kind of got the itch of like, all right, I want to grow. I want to, and strategically figured out another place and within the same building.
Yeah.
But, things kind of popped up and it turned into this thing. And now it's like I said, if you had told me a year ago, hey, you're going to have a 5-set studio that people are going to rent out from you, the brick and mortar business, I would have been like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But you have to be flexible. You're exactly right. Flexible, go with the flow, but also stay within your means, right? Don't try to offer something that's too crazy. That was the other thing that I realized I ran into was right out of the gate. I just wanted to do everything and it all. And then you quickly realize this is not, be flexible, but still stay in your lane of what you want to do, what you enjoy doing. And then if you need to do something else, outsource.
Yeah.
But be strategic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when I first went out, I'm going to be a litigator like everyone else wants to be. Yeah. And then I realized when I got into it, I'm like, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
But then you find what kind of makes you fulfilled with what you do, and then you pursue it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're fresh out of law school. You're ready to take on the world. What was your first step?
Well, I was working for a practice at the time, so I was doing a lot of real estate law at the time, doing a lot of real estate closings. I was also getting into some business stuff as well as some estate planning stuff as well. So that's when I started kind of putting my feelers out and seeing what else there was. And of course, I was doing collections at the time. I was doing landlord-tenant law. So I was doing a lot of different things.
It sounds like you were already in the industry, right? But you're kind of making it official, right? With investing in law school. how did you handle the balance of all of that? I mean, it sounds like you're going from one business where you're talking about tenant law, right? And I guess renters. And then the next you're talking about real estate. Like, I guess they kind of go together, but you understand what I'm saying? Like,
because there's a business aspect behind the whole landlord tenant. There's, but I don't know. So one of the things so eventually, I mean, things shifted around. I went out on my own. I went out on my own part-time to begin with. So it was one of those things where I was still working for a practice, but they let me do the other things on the side that I needed to do. It was a collection practice at the time. So I got my hands dirty in collection law as well. But then I ended up, because it was before then, I was a part of the National Guard. So I was actually in the National Guard. And then 6 months after transitioning away from the part-time practice, along with the part-time law practice that I was in, or the full-time law practice and part-time my practice that I was in, when I first went out on my own, within 6 months, I was getting ready to deploy. So I had to shut down my practice, deployed. And in that role, I was a JAG with the military. So I was giving advice to commanders. I was helping out soldiers. So I was doing, the nitty gritty. And really, when you're in the military, and if you're a JAG in the military, you are a business attorney.
What is JAG?
Judge Advocate General. So it's a Judge Advocate General Corps. I was a judge advocate within that corps. So I was an attorney within the
so
within the military.
Still within the realms of what you're working in,
Correct.
Just military based.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
that makes
exactly
sense.
right. So
okay.
you're giving advice to there's different projects that come up on basis. So when I deployed, there were different projects. There were a lot of contract reviews, a lot of keeping soldiers out of trouble, things like that. And you're there at the beck and call of the commanders, to where if they have questions, you're kind of advising them through the process. It's a lot what I do now. I mean, that's essentially what I do with your entrepreneurs and your small businesses. You're there to help guide them through issues.
Yeah. No, that is interesting from like a military standpoint. It's like you're probably have interesting situations come up, and now it's like, okay, it's like now my little, how do I start a DBA, I guess, is not as crazy, but at the same time, from like perspective is a big key in that. Did you take a lot from that military experience and kind of bring it to like the everyday work that you're doing now? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. You're a problem solver. So you try to solve problems. And one of the main things that commanders don't want to hear, they don't want to hear no. So get me to yes. Figure out how to get me to yes.
Yeah.
They might have an idea how to get to yes, but you might say, sir, that might not be the best idea to do it that way. But if we do it this way, it'll get you to where you want to go. Just may take a little bit longer.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a matter of being a problem solver and helping them, again, manage their command and getting them to achieve the goals that they want to achieve based on what their command structure is, what they want to do.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think there is a little bit, we kind of mentioned it before we kind of kicked the cameras on, there is a little bit of like a negative feel of like, oh, I got to get a lawyer. I got to talk to a lawyer. And that feel, even for myself, it was, I'm starting a business. I don't need to talk. I don't have any issues going on. I don't have any.
Who wants to talk to a lawyer?
Yeah. That's very like, I'm going to get my lawyer involved type thing. There's a negative like connotation or like a negative feel to it. So I'll say this, what, from your experience and what you've come across with working with other businesses, what would be like the number one thing? Like, hey, you're starting a business, you're looking at, you want to kind of put the best foot forward.
Right.
What would your advice be? Know
what you don't know. Gotcha. Understand that there are going to be gaps in knowledge. There are gaps in my knowledge. I mean, there's not a week that goes by where I'm like, didn't run into that one before. When you're a business owner, you run into that kind of crap all the time. So in addition to that, I would say make sure you have proper documents in place, especially if it's a multi-member business, if you have multi-partners, because I've run into usually the problems that occur when it comes to businesses. I mean, you're going to have client issues on occasions, but those are generally resolvable. You can kind of get through that if you need to, and it's usually not going to cost a lot of money. But the things that cost a lot of money and that usually end up being a real big hang up for especially multi-member businesses are when you don't have the proper documents in place. So there's a disagreement with the business owners. What do the documents say? Do you have a document in place? A lot of them don't have documents in place. So it's a matter of really trying to identify, okay, if there's a dispute, how's it going to be solved? And if there's no document that says how that's going to be solved or what you're going to do in that scenario, then you're going to leave it up to pure chance at that point. And it makes it very, very difficult. And it oftentimes, especially if partners end up splitting, you're essentially going through a business divorce at that point. So, and it can cost money.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those where, you know, in a perfect world, you don't want to have it. It's kind of like insurance, you know, you don't want to have it, but man, I hit a deer last week. And it was very great time. 5:30 in the morning. It was literally everyone's like, oh, it comes out of nowhere. Within like 2 seconds, I was like, what the heck just happened? But it was one of those where I was like, man, thank you for insurance. You know, for years, I haven't had to really do anything other than just pay it. Mm-hmm. So now here I am, like, well, I guess that kind of made sense, you know, to have it. It sounds like the same thing as far as like from a business, keeping your documents in order and making sure
keeping documents in order, making sure you have insurance in place, making sure that everything is spelled out as good as possible, especially even client agreements. So making sure you have good client agreement in place to where if there's a dispute or if they breach it somehow, if there's a breach of contract, I'm a paper pusher. Yeah. So I'm not in court unless I'm coaxed in there by one reason or another, but I'm generally not in court. My goal is to get the documents in place to where you don't have to go to court, and the documents will clearly spell out what happens if XYZ happens.
Wonderful. Yeah. No, and you're kind of doing a little bit of legwork in the first half to keep you from having to
That's
go
right.
into the
That's right. The second half's a lot more expensive.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Luckily, I haven't had any, but I can only imagine the back and forth, and then people wanted to delay things. Right. I can't even imagine what that would look like. So you kind of touched on like the next thought that I kind of had. So how often when was the last time you were in a courtroom? Like, I don't know if I can ask that.
About a month and a half ago, but it was a probate related matter. So after someone it was just, I was examining books. So I was giving a report on that. So,
okay. So nothing.
No, I'm not in there as
you can't handle the truth.
Son of adversarial aspect. Okay. So
makes sense.
I don't do that. I don't have time to do that, quite honestly, because I'm busy enough with what I do.
Interesting. Yeah. No, and it sounds like it, like you said, if you set yourself up, you won't have to go down that road.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. So let's kind of pivot a little bit to kind of more of like the business aspect. So how do you start your own practice? It's very similar to like a doctor's office in a sense of like you have I don't want to say red tape, but you have kind of things that you gotta get in place, or hey, I'm a lawyer starting out, I just want to get a brick and mortar and open the doors. Is that kind of?
I don't think it's any difference than any other business.
Okay.
Just for the mere fact, everyone has either a product or service to sell.
Okay.
So my service just happens to be law. Doctor would have their service being medical practice. You have a service of providing marketing services to clients, to businesses. Yeah. It's a matter of what you're doing. So same rules apply, I think, generally. But when it comes to, maybe having certain certifications in place, you're going to have certain certifications. You might have different insurance, whatever that is. But fact of the matter is you're still doing the same thing. You got to get out there. You got to market. You got to get clients in the door. You got to network. You have to pay your bills. You have to make sure your taxes are paid. So my practice is no different than any other business starting up. It's just my services I sell are law.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Right. I always tell people there's doing the business, or like providing the business, and then working on the business. Like That's working in the business and working on the business. And
Michael Gerber.
Okay.
That's a good author that talks about the differentiation between working on the business versus working in the business.
Yeah. And it's interesting to kind of see like the different sides of it. You almost have to like put a different hat on.
Yeah.
It's still, everything's under the same umbrella, but I get it a lot because I'm, the sole owner of Hustle Productions. I have people that support, but when it's tax time, yours, and a nice accountant, but it's, it's me that's got to kind of put all the information together, which is fine. And I took on that burden when I said I want to start an LLC, but there is like this idea of like, I kind of have to kind of reposition my thinking to where it's like, all right, I need to get this done. I can't worry about, I have to readjust, prioritize, like, especially tax season's a good example. It's like, I got to get this stuff together. I got to allocate some time to do this and work it in with all the other things that are kind of in place already. So it's very interesting. And I think that's one piece of like the business side that if I were to talk to like a new entrepreneur, I would say allocate time for working in the business and on the business, and don't neglect one or the other. Because if you neglect working in the business, you're probably not going to have a lot of business.
Right.
And then if you neglect working on the business, you're probably going to have a lot of business. No, I'm just kidding, but
yeah, right.
yeah. So it's one of those where it's like, you have to kind of evenly, depending on the year, right? It ebbs and flows, but you have to at least set a little bit of time towards it and talk to the professionals, right? I'm not, like I said, I'm not an accountant, but we have one that we work with. I'm not a lawyer, but we have one that we talk with and work with. Don't try to leave it up to chance. Like, hopefully I'm going to get this right, because like you said, the first half is way less expensive than the second half. So that's very interesting.
And most businesses are like that. The people have a skill. They want to go out and earn money on the skill. And it was the book I was just mentioning. It's called the E-Myth Seminar. Okay. Michael Gerber. He talks about that most small business owners are technicians suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure. So they spend all their time tactically doing the things that they need to do to pay the bills, to make sure that they have more business coming in. They're doing their trade. They're doing their craft. But yet at the same time, there's that other aspect that we were just talking about, to where you have to work on your business, making sure that administratively, okay, what's the next move administratively? Do we need to bring on someone else in order to be able to hit this market or hit that market? Or do we need to make sure that we have a vendor that's going to be able to supply us for this or that other project that we're doing? So strategically thinking about what your next moves are of a business. So it's hard. It's very hard. Otherwise, everyone would be an entrepreneur. Otherwise, and since that's the case, most people aren't.
Yeah. It's, I have mentioned it on the show in general. But I'm like, I don't want to say I'm the first of my kind in my family. But there's not a lot of entrepreneurs in the family that I'm aware of. It's down this unbeaten path, so to speak, of, interesting. I wonder if this is a good move. I wonder, and then from the other side of it is like, when first starting out, it was kind of like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah. You're going to do what?
Yeah. You're going to go. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a creative person. I enjoy it. This is kind of I also felt like it was falling in the wheelhouse of what I went to school for, compared to where I was when I decided to make the decision, where I was like, I'm not utilizing my degree at all. Yep. The only thing I'm doing is paying that off. And that's really it. Right. Now I feel like I come in here, I'm like, I feel like I'm actually like,
purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose.
So it's very rewarding, especially when right before this meeting, I just got off a call with a client, and they were just talking about the amount of success. I know that's probably like the perfect call to have right before a podcast, but it's funny to like see a process in place and like have this vision, and then work with them to get to that vision and see it pay off. And I'm like, that's why I started doing all this. Yeah. That's why I wanted to get into this. You have your headaches and you have your this and that come up. But that purpose is what kind of drives.
You have the headaches with anything else. Yeah. So it might as well be your headache.
Yeah. Might as well kind of enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So so from a marketing perspective, right? How does that, I guess you kind of answered it a little bit, but I'll let you kind of dive a little bit deeper. So how do you guys handle that on your ass? It's just your typical, like, hey, traditional marketing, try to be creative.
Try to be creative. The rules, the ethics rules have gotten a lot more flexible in the last probably 5 to 10 years for attorneys. So you can do a little bit more than you used to be able to do before. But the main thing you have to avoid is going out and directly soliciting. So you have to make sure you have your proper disclosures if you're sending out mail to someone, the direct mail stuff.
Yeah.
Also, you can't knock on doors. There's certain things you just can't do. But if you're working around all those other, social media, you're not knocking on doors. So, you just can't make promises in there that it's a differentiation between providing advice to people and just providing information for people.
Yeah.
So that's why, usually if I'm doing a speaking experience where I'm in front of a bunch of people, I've done some stuff for Laurel Ridge. I'll hesitate to actually answer a specific question related to someone's general scenario, because I don't want to offer advice. But I'm like, just contact me on the outside. We'll chat about it. We can kind of navigate that as we deem fit at that point.
That makes sense. So we've worked with brokerages in the past.
Yeah,
they're very similar. There's certain things they can and can't do. There's certain things they can and can't talk about. not because they don't know or they can't speak on it, but it's like you can't generalize specific information because somebody takes it and
That's right.
does something with it, and then they're knocking on your door saying, "Hey, you told me that I can do this," and you're like, "No, I've just put up a TikTok." No, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like I can see the comparison there, and it's very interesting because I guess as things develop, like so as like social media marketing kind of turns into what it is, you have businesses like yours where it's like I got to kind of read the fine print here and figure out what I can and can't do.
Right.
Because yeah, it's cool to put up a cool, trendy, whatever, but if it's gonna hurt you in the long run more than help you, then that's something you got to kind of factor in.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So it's interesting because I work with real estate agents and brokerages, and the agents, I jokingly, they're in the Wild West. Like they can't do whatever they want, but they have a lot more flexibility. Whereas the brokerages, I was working with one and they were like, well, we can do this, we can't do that. And there was a lot of discussion around like logos and whose logo and ours has to be there, or this, whatever. And I was just like, man, this is very interesting. It's a different beast. It's doable, right? It's not unheard of, but that's why sometimes I see, I'm like, why aren't they doing a little bit more? And sometimes I'm like, it's probably because they want to, but somebody's telling them no.
Right.
So you've kind of touched on a little bit. We've talked a little bit about how you got into, the practice and working on the business compared to into business. What could you kind of touch on a little bit of like, what have you seen kind of not works well, but I guess I don't want to say success stories. That's kind of like the typical question, but where have you guys kind of fallen into the world of legal? You know, you talked about a little bit, you work with like HVAC and all these different companies. So what is it that the service that you're providing for them more times than, what's the average, I guess?
Okay. So really anywhere from the startup business. So we'll help them form the actual entity itself, whether it's an LLC or a corporation. Most people do LLCs because it's pretty flexible as far as what you can do and how you're taxed. Okay. And then providing any kind of documentation anywhere in between. If you need a client services agreement, you need an operating agreement, you need an agreement, a partnership agreement, vendor agreements. Really, I mean, I don't want to say that there's no document we can't do, but I do a lot of different documents, a lot of different ones.
Interesting.
Anywhere, and then all the way through the sale of a business. So I probably work on anywhere from 2 to 3 business sales a month, and then I only suspect that's going to get busier right now because you have a lot of the boomers that are starting to figure out, okay, I want to figure out how to sell this or pass it down to someone else, whether it's a key employee, a family member, or if they just want to broker it out, get a broker involved, and then sell on the open market. So really anywhere from the entire life cycle of a business, when it comes to making sure the proper documentation is in place, we can pretty much cover it. And I'm of the mindset too, I don't go after the large businesses like the Rubbermaids or the Treks or anything like that. I generally focus on your small business owner. SBA definition for small business owner, I believe, is like $50 million and less in revenue. That's really high. That's actually a pretty good sized business. But anywhere from the mom and pop shops all the way through, someone that has 30, 50, 75, 100, 150 employees. Yeah. They're the people that I look at because a lot. I don't want to classify that, but you can get a better billable hour if you have a large business and you can just bill out. But at the same time, that neglects a significant aspect of the population, being the small business owner, because they might not have the cash in order to be able to do the hourly fee on a regular basis. I'm flat feed out pretty much across the board. I flat fee stuff out. I mean, anywhere from, like I said, anywhere from the startup all the way through the business sale. I try to flat fee stuff out as much as possible. That way it meets people's budgets. But my whole goal in that is I don't believe any small business owner should be without legal representation.
The startup aspect of it.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that, you don't want any small business to go without legal representation. Right. And you were kind of diving in a little bit about talking about your father. So I'll let you kind of pick up right from there.
When I was a kid, I'm a Gen Xer, so we snooped around all the time around the house, found all kinds of crap. But I found business cards. It was Glenn's Repair Service. My father's name is Glenn. No influence on the name of my business, but I remember asking my mom, I'm like, what are these? They're like, oh, your dad's thinking about going out in business. What's the first thing you do? You do business cards. So, and for one reason or another, he never went out on his own. So I don't know if it's just because he didn't know how or what, but my goal is to be able to provide that kind of nexus with the small business owner to get them past those different hurdles that they're going to experience throughout the life cycle of their business. Because I mean, I'm not sure what the current statistic is, but they say that was it 60% of all businesses fail after 6 or 8 years or something like that. So my goal is to be able to extend that timeline out to hopefully where they can avoid these different obstacles that they're going through. I mean, hell, I started my business. I mean, I started my business up 3 times because of the military and different things I was doing. So I learned something new every time too. So I want to be able to kind of convey that knowledge and help other businesses out and maybe make them to where they can get through those different obstacles that they're going to encounter to where they can become a really successful business, not only become a small business, become a medium-sized business as they grow.
Yeah. No, it's nice because a lot of times you get the feeling of like, small businesses are like kind of forgotten or not really thought about a lot.
Right.
Being a small business, it does kind of, I see it all the time with different businesses or like even like coaching. They're like, well, you have to bring in a certain amount of income before we even talk to you. And I'm like, I mean, that's good. I get that because they're trying to qualify their leads. Sure. I understand the game.
They want to get paid.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. Yeah. But it's kind of like, for the person that's just starting out, they don't, you started the podcast off or we talked about it very shortly after was, you don't know what you don't know. And,
right.
You kind of have to have that one person, that consistent like voice of like, hey, here's how to tackle this. Mm-hmm. Here's the best avenue. Here are your options. Here's kind of like the advice almost. And,
right.
and, it's always nice to be from a legal standpoint because then you kind of have this feeling of, okay, I do have a little bit of a bubble around me that, if I do this way, I shouldn't have any issues and legal issues, I guess is a better way to put it. But having that, like, even just from like a tax perspective, like just how to just stay organized, what do I have to have in place? How do I pay? Like, how do I do all these different, things that pop up that you don't realize, I get like I think I even emailed you at one point. It was like, I got this something or other. I don't know what it is. And you're like, oh yeah, you just gotta, X, Y, and Z, this and that. I was like, okay. It's just kind of having that voice.
Until you throw it out.
Yeah, well, maybe, hopefully. I don't know. We'll see how that panned out. But whatever you told me to do, I did it. So we're into this together. But
you're right.
It's one of those where, and I'll say this is I wish I would have talked to somebody a lot quicker or a lot sooner, or even before. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about I want to go into this. What's the best way? Even just like you probably can speak on a little bit more of LLC versus S Corp, right? Why would you want to go one way or the other? And luckily I have a little bit of knowledge, through my degree, understanding the breakdown of it. Right. But even myself, I was like, I don't know, and now obviously we're LLC, but it's like, why would you want to go one way or the other?
Is that a question for me?
If you want to run with it, you can.
Yeah, everyone's going to tune out.
Yeah, no, I think I'll say this, the one or two handful that maybe say, hey, I'm thinking of starting a business. What should I do? Yeah. This is for them. So everybody else, go get a snack or something.
Yeah. But, so that's the $10 million question. So the majority of people are going to go with an LLC. LLC is very flexible as far as its structure goes. It's you can be very flexible as far as how you're taxed as well. So usually when someone's setting up a business, they're not going to have a lot of revenue coming unless they have already contracts or they're breaking off of a big company and taking contracts with them, which is, get into other issues with that. But when you're set up as an LLC, you can be taxed numerous different ways. So when you've set up as a single member LLC, you're basically what's called a disregarded entity. You're taxed at the personal level. So and this is tax wise, and I'm going to have people's eyes roll back in their head, but you file your taxes through your personal tax returns. You get a Schedule C that is incorporated into, shows profits and losses for the business, and you're taxed at the individual level. Now, as you grow the business or you bring on partners, if you bring on a partner, now you can be taxed also as a partnership. So you'd have a separate tax return, each get a K-1. That's filed on your personal tax return. So there's another tax return that's involved, and that's the partnership tax return.
Interesting. Yeah.
So you're taxed then as a partnership, even though you're an LLC.
Okay.
Then as you grow your business, you may want to opt to be taxed as an S Corp. So by doing that, you can get paid a couple different ways as well. So you can get paid with the standard way for a business owner with an LLC is going to do ownership draws. That's how you get paid. You can't get paid with a salary. But if you convert to be taxed as an S Corp, as an LLC, then you can get a salary, and you can also get shareholder distributions or owner draws also. So there are a couple different ways to get paid with that.
Okay.
So, and there are certain advantages, and this is something I always tell people. I'm like, talk to your CPA, find out what's going to be best as far as how you're taxed. Tell them what your revenue is. That way they can kind of figure that aspect out, because it's going to cost you more money to file another set of taxes. But the LLC is very flexible. Some people may have specific goals that they want to be. They already have revenue coming in. They generally know that they're going to be able to get up and moving pretty quickly, so they might want to just set up automatically as a corporation.
Okay.
And it requires the extra filing to become the S chapter corporation then too. So you'd have to file that paperwork with the IRS, and now you're classified as the S chapter, which is limited shareholders. You can only have 100 shareholders for S corporations versus a C corp. You can have as many as you want.
Okay.
I rarely have people that come in and say, I want to set up as a C corp. A lot of C corps still set up for purposes of they want to go public one day. That's the easiest.
Those are like your larger.
They're your larger companies, or again, the people that know that they're going to be larger at some point.
Okay.
Maybe an IT firm that wants to that's possibly going public at some point.
Okay.
So then that's typical case in point for a C corp.
Yeah. No, that one, you just reassured all of the information I thought I knew. So it's good. I think to kind of keep it in that small business realm. I mean, there's people that ask me like, well, why would you go? Because they hear the terms, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, why would you go LLC over S Corp? And I'm like, me personally, it's because, I mean, the little that I do know, like you're still covered as far as liability, and it keeps things separate. But there is that kind of nice factor of you don't have too much going on, right? Yeah. You're not filing a whole another tax return, this and that. And I am not legally advising or telling anybody what to do or how to do it. I'm just kind of speaking off my own personal experience. Is that it's a little bit easier to like understand, right? When you're just starting out in a new business, you have all the other stuff that's going on. The way that it was explained to me is like, hey, it's just another form of income that you're putting on your own tax return or your own filing. And I was like, okay, that makes a little bit. It's just, and then from a legal standpoint, it kind of separates. So if you do run into an issue.
Risk mitigation.
Yes.
That's exactly right. And you could have the best entity structure in place, but if you don't run it properly, you can also be what's called piercing the veil. They can actually go after you personally. So in other words, you don't want to commingle assets. You want to make sure that when you get paid, it goes into your bank account. You're paying your expenses from your bank account. The way you get paid, you do the draw. The draw is a check that comes from business bank account, goes to the personal bank account. Where people get in trouble, and this happens a lot, is they start paying business expenses out of the personal bank account, and they're starting to pay personal expenses out of their business bank account. You start crossing funds like that, you become open. So if you're sued and they go after you and they start seeing these monies going back and forth, personal business, at that point, you could be held personally liable. So the whole purpose of having that separate entity structure in place is to make sure you limit your liability, limited liability company. Same with a corporation. Corporation works the same way. But again, you want to make sure that you're running your books properly.
Okay. Yeah, so, let me kind of, I don't want to say dumb it down. Let me kind of throw something at you. So I have grandma who sent me $100 check, right, for my birthday, right? It has nothing to do with the business whatsoever. That's going into my personal account.
Got it.
But I'm like, well, I'm running a little slim on the business side. Business isn't booming. I need to pay this internet bill for $100.
Yep.
Instead of going on and taking my personal card and paying that directly, from my understanding, it's move the money into the business account and then pay it, right? Show that paper trail of you're not kind of washing, you're going back and forth between the two, and then vice versa. Yeah. Ideally, you're making money from the business. That's the goal, right? So you want to move the money so you have your personal bill that you need to pay, move it out of that account into your personal account.
You got it.
And from my understanding, again, we don't have to go too crazy doing that from a business owner's standpoint, because my original thought was, well, if I move that shows income, am I gonna have to pay tax on that? And it's like, well, with Helen LLC, yeah. So it's, and that's get that knowledge and understanding. That's the important part. And I probably might not have explained it perfectly, but it's very, once you understand that, that's like the first step, because you get into business because you want to make money. Obviously it's a passion, hopefully, right? But the end goal is to make money, to be able to keep doing what you want to do as a passion. That's how I kind of explain, like, well, why are you going to put it up? If you love it so much, why are you going to charge people? I'm like, well, you got to pay for it somehow. Like everybody needs, So that's like the baseline. Once you figure out how to move money back and forth and pay yourself and all these other things, hopefully that comes quicker than later. Full transparency. When we first started, first couple years, I just was like, hey, I'm working full time. I'm just going to invest everything I make in the business back into the business. Right. I don't need to pull anything from it. Right. I want to see this blossom and grow the best that it can. So I'm going to kind of take myself out of it as far as like the paying, and that I think if you have the ability to do that, it's not a horrible idea. Yeah. I think it's very, it's an investment. And I that's kind of what I kind of took it as well. It was like, I'm an investor in this business, right? I'm the owner, but I'm also like, look at it from the outside looking in, is like, I want to see this business grow. So even if it, like, with other businesses and large business, there's investors that want to see. I kind of see myself, this is the big boardroom table that we're sitting at talking, but it's a strategy. It was very interesting, but understanding the movement of that, I think is besides starting the LLC, is understanding how to do that. And then if you don't know who to talk to know what you can and can't do, and there's a funny saying, it was like, there's things you can do, but you might not be able to, that actually can, you shouldn't do them. So making sure those things are in order and and then also, like, it's exciting because, like, I've talked to you about, bringing on, I'm the sole owner right now, but potential talks of bringing on somebody else in the future when that looks like, and that's when it gets exciting, because it's like, I went from this idea to now something that it's kind of growing into like more than just my own thing. It's now becoming a business. It's legit. Yeah. I mean, it's been legit, but it's very interesting. And it sounds like you help with that as well. Like how to kind of go from like,
oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like anything else. All relationships require nurturing from one extent to another. So, if you're married, you have a spouse. If you're a business owner and you have a partner, you have a partner also. So
I myself, I guess I'm kind of in my own head. I kind of compare the two, right? You have your personal life and the business. You have to nurture them. You have to work on them. Yep. It's not just going to be perfect all the time.
That's right.
But I think if you go at it with the best intention and the best heart, you should get the most out of it. Right. And the same thing with businesses, and from the short window that I've learned is be true, be honest, and whatever happens kind of happens. Yeah. Right. Good, bad, or ugly. But as long as you stick to like those core values behind it, it should turn out all right.
Yeah, it's funny. I in fact, you brought up something. So a lot of new business owners, I was in the same boat where something bad happened. After you get going, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. Oh,
I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail. That's my.
But now it's I first went out in 2014, so it's over 10 years now. So it's like one of those things now where something happens, something bad, you're like, huh, didn't see that one happen. I guess I won't do that again. Yeah, it's just it kind of rolls off your back. You learn how to deal with the pressure a little bit more. I mean, yeah, you're gonna, like I said, if entrepreneurship was easy, everyone would do it. But it sucks a lot of times. It sucks the wind out of you. I look at it as a big puzzle. So you're trying to optimize and build this puzzle the best way it can possibly be built. But the problem is you don't know all the pieces or where they are.
Yeah.
So,
and if it's a part of that same
yeah,
puzzle,
exactly.
yeah.
And you're like, oh, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So,
But you kind of learn as you go.
yeah,
It's
I love it
very-
though. I wouldn't change it for the world.
So do you help as far as like every step of the way? Like, so let's say, hey, here I am, day one.
Mhm.
I'm ready to start my business of I don't know. We'll say videography.
Sure.
I'm ready to start. I come to you and like, Kevin, hey, I'm ready to get going. You kind of baby walk me through the intro, the beginning, the how to start,
Yep.
what all the different things to do. And then as we grow to the tasks of what you do or help with, kind of grow with it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. Really anywhere along the way. So, if you bring on someone else, then you're going to need an operating agreement that's going to include that. You have to show, if you're going to purchase them or if you're going to gift the interest to them, how's that going to look? You want to make sure you have paper trails in place for that. And yeah, it's as you grow, we grow with you type of thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
But now there are going to be those larger businesses. So I've actually turned away. I'm like, I don't think you really need to go with me. You need to go with someone either in-house or you need to make sure that you have someone that's going to be able to handle you if you're going to go public.
Yeah.
So I will pass that.
Interesting.
Off.
Yeah. I mean, we have similar where sometimes people come to us and we're like,
Yeah.
I don't think this is where your best option.
Right.
And it's crazy to think about because, especially when you first get started, you're like, I'll take on anything. I guess I never thought of that from a
It only
lawyer's
takes one of the
perspective.
two things, and you're like, oh, why did I do this?
Yeah. Yep. Oh man. I try to take everything as a learning experience, but it was definitely one of those. I was like, I shouldn't have done this. Why did I do this?
Yep.
But if you commit to it, you got to commit to it. Get it done, learn from it, and then just never do it again.
Yep.
So that's interesting. So I think you guys, you have a good footprint in the Winchester area, and it sounds like you're expanding. I kind of end everything kind of on that final question of if you could give one piece of advice to somebody brand new, you just helped them file the paperwork yesterday. The ink's not even dried. What's your first advice?
Oh, that's a great question. We already talked about knowing what you don't know. And just understand there's going to be a big ignorance factor when you first jump in. And don't overthink. Get out there. And I get oftentimes, every once in a while, I'll get someone in that's like, I don't really like to sell. I'm like, well, you need to learn how to.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, it's a different story.
Yeah.
So you got to get out there and it's the equivalent of jumping off a cliff and building the airplane on the way down. There's gonna be a lot of times you're not gonna know what's gonna come next. You just have to roll with it. You got to figure out you're a problem solver for your own business before you are for any other clients. You got to figure out how to make it work. And like I said, expect to get kicked in the teeth and get back up again. It's the people that get back up again and keep moving forward that you use each of those instances as a learning experience to what not to do again. It's not the successes that make you successful. It's the failures that make you successful. So being able to kind of dust yourself off, move on. God knows I've failed enough in my life for sure.
Yeah. And I think that, from a business avenue or business perspective and just, life in general, but I think to kind of add to that a little bit is when you do kind of see yourself getting knocked down, sometimes it doesn't hurt to talk to somebody that knows what they're doing, especially, in a legal realm of, because even myself, especially with how technology is and where it's going, sometimes you feel like, I can just do that myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes you probably shouldn't do that yourself. So it's like, don't be afraid to get knocked down and get back up, but also, understand or figure out when the best is to kind of reach out to the professional and talk to them and at least make sure you're on the right path, right? It's reassuring. It's nice. Yeah. And we've had plenty of conversations where I'm like, I'm an overthinker, 100%. I overthink everything.
I am too.
Yeah.
I am too.
But having that voice where you're like, no, you're good. This is, you're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing.
Then a year later, you look back on it and you laugh.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So I appreciate your time sitting down.
You. I appreciate
it. Was very fun. Again, firsts of, this is not legal advice, all that fun stuff. But
Yeah, right.
no, it's nice to kind of see it from like, you are a lawyer, but you're a business as well.
That's
So
right.
it's like, it's interesting, like having those
Yeah.
same thoughts and concerns and everything. It goes, just kind
Absolutely.
of shows that, there's the business and then there's the business.
Yep.
So I appreciate
Exactly.
it. So
Thank you.
I will put everything, all your information and links and all that. I'll talk to you after and connect and all that, but I'll make sure everybody has your information. So if you guys are looking for advice or help, starting a small business, growing a small business, working on a small business, whatever kind of entails, definitely talk to Kevin and see what he can help you with.
Good deal. Thank you.
Cool. Absolutely. All right. See you guys later. Peace.